Welcome to the Wall Street Lab podcast, where we interview top financial professionals and deconstruct their practices to give you an insider look into the world of finance. Here are your hosts, Lucas Muzialski and Leo Severino.
Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the Wall Street Lab podcast. And today we're talking venture capital. We've had quite a few requests to cover this topic in more detail, so here it is today.
Yeah, today we're talking with Stefan Schuetze and Juan Rodriguez, which are both members of the managing board of Finlab AG. And they're gonna talk about what is at the forefront of technology, so super state-of-the-art topics. It's fintech, venture capital, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, ICOs, how it is to be a public company, what it takes to become a member of the executive board. So there's a lot of career advice in there and hopefully something for everybody of you.
To give you a bit more insight before the interview, Finlab AG is one of the largest fintech investors and company builders in Europe. They are a publicly listed company on the German stock exchange, and they mostly invest in early rounds in financial technology startups in Germany. Now, in order to stay completely transparent, how I met Finlab last year was they actually made an investment in a company I co-founded last year, a blockchain accelerator program. Just so you're aware, this topic comes up in the interview as well. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us to grow this show and reach a broader audience. And now, without further ado, please enjoy our interview with Stefan Schuetze and Juan Rodriguez. Hello everyone. Hello Stefan. Hello Juan. Very nice of you to join us on the Wall Street Lab podcast. We're actually sitting here in the offices of Finlab in Frankfurt, having a nice cup of coffee. How are you this morning?
Yeah, thanks, Lucas, for coming here and interviewing us for your podcast series. Yeah, pretty well today because the weather is fine here in Frankfurt right now. We have already summer. This is still spring, but we have summer in Frankfurt already. So yeah, we are totally fine and we can start.
Perfect. So as we usually start these interviews, maybe what will be very beneficial to our listeners before we jump into Finlab, before we jump into to the fintech space, maybe you could tell us a bit something about you and how you got to where you are at this point. What was the road that you took to the position that you are in now?
Okay, yeah, as you already said, my name is Stefan. I'm 45 years old right now. For my background, I'm studied law. So it's not so the usual background for venture capital investor or venture capital managing director, but I studied law and have also a master degree in merger and acquisitions. But after finishing my law study, I decided to step into a venture capital company or in a financial sector. And I started my career in January 2000 in a venture capital company in Berlin. It was called BMP AG. BMP was also a listed venture capital company. And I stepped into this company right in the middle of the .com bubble, so to speak. So we had at this time 80 portfolio companies, and I was responsible, of course, for all these legal aspects and legal issues we had as a portfolio companies. And as a listed companies, I was also responsible for the regulations for the stock exchange and other maybe law which is required for a listed company. So, and after 4 years being at BMP, I have seen maybe everything related to venture capital, how to invest in venture capital, what are the issues with venture capital, and especially in the German market. And then decided to change the job and the city and move from Berlin to Frankfurt. And the idea was basically that I changed maybe only for 1 or 2 years and then go back to Berlin, because Berlin is, in my point of view, of course, still a little bit nicer than Frankfurt. However, as you see. I'm still here in Frankfurt and now for more than 14 years now. Yeah, why I have not going back to Berlin? Because I changed the job and joined a company called Altira AG, and Altira AG was a asset management company. So we have different buckets for investment. So we invested in mutual funds, in private equity, in venture capital. We set up an African company which invested in financial service companies in Africa. We had companies in a renewable market sector. So a wide range of companies which we invested in and which managed. So was a really, really interesting job profile. And after a while, I decided, okay, I have to stay here in Frankfurt and have to build up these as a management company. But after a couple of years, we figured out that maybe it's not the right approach to have such a large and wide range investment approach or investment strategy. So, and in 2012 and 2013, we decided to go back to our roots or to our maybe first idea to invest in venture capital and private equity. So, and at this point, the supervisory board of Altira AG asked me to become a board member of Altira AG because I know maybe not saying everything about the company, but pretty much all about the investments we did and all about the things we have made in the past. So they asked me to be a board member. I said, okay, we can do this. And at this point, we restructured Altira AG and focusing back on venture capital and private equity investments. And in 2014, we changed the firm name into Finlab AG. And from this time, we only investing in fintech companies, mainly located in Germany, but of course not limited. But right now we have invested only in companies located in Germany, and yeah, that's why I'm still here. So I'm the board member now of Finlab AG, and can hand over now to Juan, and maybe Juan can also say a little bit about his role here at Finlab.
Okay, thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Lukas, for being here. I'm Juan Rodriguez. I'm 42 years old. Out of my name, I'm Spanish, but living my whole life in Frankfurt, so I'm a Frankfurt Spanish guy. And I start my career 1992 in Frankfurt with a typical German group called AEG. It was a big subsidiary of Daimler, and there I learned as an accountant. So I'm the finance guy still, and after 8 years in a big group, I wanted to change something in my career, and I moved to a startup in near to Frankfurt, which make telecom services. And in this moment, I get in touch with Altira. I think Stefan told the history. And I worked in a startup for 7 years. And in this time, I have seen a lot. It was between 2000 and 2007. So I've seen the big bubble. We raised 35 million euros. We burned 35 million euros. We earned 1 million euro and we lost 2 million euros. So interesting time in my working life. So, and afterwards in 2007, the Altira board asked me to come to Altira to take over the controlling department, investor relations department. So I joined in 2007. So I met Stefan here. And since then, I work for the former Finlab. And in this time, my role was to be the investor reporting guy and the financial guy. And in this time, I've seen the whole focus of Altira. And in this time, I've seen a lot more than in a startup. I've seen the capital markets side and together with ADC, the African Development Corporation, I have invested in financial services in Africa, and I've seen a lot of how to invest and how not to invest. So together with Stefan in 2013, we changed the strategy, and I got the board member too. And since then, we do this together. And now, since more than 4 years, we are investing in fintech and now since 1 year in blockchain investments.
Thank you for that. And maybe could you give us a brief introduction to what are the majority of Finlab's activities right now, recently, in 2018?
Well, we have several items there. We have one, it's the asset management. So we manage a company called Heliot, and this are investments in private equity and in German Mittelstand, SMEs. And the other pillar is to invest in fintech and blockchain investments. So today we have a 50-50 investment approach there.
Okay, very interesting. And what do you think about the fintech space right now? What is something that you're seeing, maybe you're excited about, maybe you're seeing too much of something happening? What is your feeling about the fintech space? I mean, you invest especially in Germany. Maybe you could give us some feedback on the German market that you're seeing from the investor's perspective.
Well, we have seen more than 500 fintechs investments in Germany in this time, and what it's now, it's that the good ones are moving on, and you are seeing a lot of uplift in evaluations, and you are seeing that the models are changing. They are not more B2C, they are more looking on B2B. And you are seeing the concentration that now our banks and are integrating their systems in.
We've been seeing this trend, I think, when the word fintech was essentially created, people were talking about fintech displacing banks. And I think that's very interesting what you just mentioned, that it kind of turned more into banks acquiring these fintechs and working together on using the bank's position to develop the fintechs further. Stefan, what are you excited most about in the fintech space right now?
Right now, we see kind of a consolidation period here in the fintech sector. We still have new foundations in the fintech area, but of course not the numbers we have seen before. But what is increasing is definitely the funding size of the fintech companies. Maybe you have noticed the latest very important funding campaigns was number 26, raised about 160 million euro from Allianz also, which is an incumbent company here, or a very well-named insurance company in Germany, and of course in Europe as well. And also you have seen maybe the 50 million funding round from Solaris Bank. So what we see here is definitely a high demand from investors who are looking for investments in the fintech area. But I think we see higher valuations and higher funding size around now, but the number of fintech foundations is a little bit decreasing compared to the years ago. So the exciting for us still is definitely to disrupt the existing fintech market. But as you said, and as Juan already said, it's more in a cooperation with the existing players in this market, like the larger banks and the incumbent companies, which are already doing fintech or financial technology services over the past years. So we right now looking definitely more into the blockchain and cryptocurrency space, because we see there is still space for disruptive technologies or disruptive business models. And what we also like is that is a new approach to fund companies via ICOs. So we know already the IPOs, the initial public offering, when you go to the stock exchange. We know, of course, established venture capital or private equity funding facilities. And now we have a new thing here on the table, which is called ICO, the initial coin offering. And we definitely have a deeper look into the space. And that is why we have, already invested in Iconic Lab, for example.
As an experienced VC, I'm sure you've seen thousands of pitch decks from companies approaching you looking for funding. What are some of the most important aspects that you look at whenever you see a pitch deck? What is something that you, every time someone puts an investment proposal in front of you, that you look at as the most important factors for the company?
Yeah, of course. The most important factor is that the company which is getting in touch with us will present us a solution for an existing problem. So what is the problem and what is the solution you offer for your customer or clients you are targeting? So you have to explain what do you see as a pain or a struggle right now in the market and how we can build a solution here. And why do you want to build a solution for this pain or problem you have seen here in the market? That's, of course, is the most important thing, because when we get no answer for what is a project built or set up, so we cannot invest in this project, because when the founders cannot explain what they want to do and what they want to fix or what to solve in the near future, then of course it's not an investment case for us. On the other hand, I know Juan now for more than 10 years, and we work very closely together for 10 years, so we have a really good relation, and we have decided only to invest in companies in which we want to invest, while the management team has also a lot of experienced skills or is outstanding. And to be honest, we like them. So we will not invest in, so to speak, very, very rough maybe, but it's very in assholes. So we will not invest in companies. We sit together and say, okay, no, we have no relation with them. And so second important thing for us is, or one of the most important thing, of course, is the management team. And the management team must experience in his area they are working, but also must fit to our investment philosophy and investment strategy. And at the end, we have to work with them on a daily basis in a good relation.
So it's like a Google rule. I think Google implemented a similar hiring policy as they went the no assholes policy.
Exactly, no assholes policy. Because sometimes there's coming a company and presenting this pitch deck and presenting his business model, and maybe the business model is interesting, but you cannot build a relation to the management team, or you feel okay, it's a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe it's not the right person to work with or to work together with in the near future. So then, of course, when the business model is still pretty outstanding and pretty good, we definitely will take a deeper look in this company. But at the end, we have an active investor, because Finlab is not only a venture capital company which provides money to the companies, and then we are passive, and then we await maybe a quarterly report and looking what's going on there, and then maybe have once a year an annual general meeting. So we are an active investor, and we are working on a daily basis together with these companies, and we provide network and other facilities. Then definitely we need to have a good relation to the management team, and that is also a key thing for us to invest in.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Juan, you mentioned you work more on the financial side of Finlab, and here is an interesting question that we don't get to ask a lot, because you're essentially an investment manager, but you're also a publicly listed company. How does the fact that you're publicly listed affect your decisions that you make as Finlab?
Well, good question. At the end, all of our decisions that we do are not thinking on our listing at the stock market, because we don't take decisions which will have an effect at the next day. So all of our investments are long-term. We are publicly listed, and we are like an evergreen fund, so we don't need to buy something today and to sell it tomorrow. There is no effect in our decisions due to the listing. What we do is that what we want to do for our investors is to find the right investments that we can earn money at the end.
And a really good point that you mentioned, that you are not bound by the typical VC rules where you have to, because the fund is running out, you have to exit an investment after, let's say, 7 years. So that's an interesting point, that you can actually support the companies as you go, and you're not bound by these periods of exiting because your investors make you do that. Stefan, you mentioned your recent focus on blockchain cryptocurrencies, and maybe we could dive a bit deeper into this.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the fintech space has been we've been seeing a bit fewer companies in the fintech space recently, but there is still potential for disruption in the blockchain space. Could you maybe elaborate a bit why you made the decision to deep dive into this blockchain space?
Yeah, I think it's not necessary to explain what is the blockchain technology or what is exactly behind blockchain technology. But what is really important to say is that the disruptive idea behind blockchain is that you can exchange data between different contracting parties without intermediaries. So you will kick out intermediaries in many kind of businesses, from how does it work right now. But in the near future, you will see the blockchain technology will disrupt this business models because you don't need these intermediaries. For example, when you transfer a share or you buy a share over the stock market via your bank account, so there are involved brokers, clearing companies like Clearstream from Deutsche Börse and other participants to transfer the stock from you to me, maybe. And via blockchain technology, for example, you can transfer data or assets without these intermediaries in a transparent, cost-efficient, and also no manipulated way. So that is the very interesting thing behind the blockchain technology. And right now, of course, many people combine blockchain technology only with the existing currencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum. So many people think, okay, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum are based on the blockchain technology, but blockchain technology offers so much more for the existing business models. And that's why we have a deeper look into this technology and why we have a deeper look into this technology combined with the fintech sector. Because also in the fintech area, in a fintech market, in a fintech or a financial market, we can use blockchain technology to disrupt existing business models, definitely.
I find this a very interesting convergence of the larger corporates and banks coming on board with this technology and kind of jumping into the space, seeing what they could do there. Now, you've been involved with very many fintech companies. What's different about growing a fintech specific company rather than any other field? Are there any lessons learned that you can share with our audience that you went through while growing these fintech companies?
Yeah, first of all, the most different between a fintech company and maybe an e-commerce company is the regulation. So, of course, when you want to sell books or clothes via the internet like Amazon does or Zalando, you don't need a regulation from the existing regulator like the BaFin or the FSA, from UK maybe. And that is the most different thing compared to other businesses which you can do via the internet or mobile devices. So when you step into the fintech market or fintech sector, you have to know that at the end, when you will compete with existing or incumbent companies, you need to have fully regulated licenses to establish your business. Or you have to work together with an existing bank or license giver, or so-called tied agent agreement, that you can perform your business to the market. Because when you talk about money, and fintech is of course related to money, the people need trust, and they trust of course in companies which are fully regulated, or at least have a partner which is regulated and can provide the necessary license for your business.
As a startup coming into the fintech space, looking for potential investors to support me on my journey, how does a typical process from starting to source the companies to then signing the agreement look like? And what are the major hurdles that you as an investor or the startups go through to accomplish this?
At the beginning, it is you must find the right investor, and to get the commitment that you will get the money. And further on, you must write a lot of contracts. We are here in Germany, and in Germany you need for all of this notary, and that's a lot of paperwork to do. And it's not finished in minutes or hours. It's a process. It's a process between 4 to 8 weeks, and at the end, when you finish with the notary, you need to pay in the subscribe capital. Afterwards, you need to pay in the archio. So you need time, and this is something what the most startups know meanwhile, but at the end, they need all the money fast. So, but a process that you must do.
What is the worst piece of advice that you hear people giving out to startups and maybe fintechs, especially when they launch their platforms? Is there something that you hear, I don't know, in the media or people saying that you completely disagree with?
Yeah, I think the most stupid advice is that when you think you can do it without regulation, without the license. So at the end, when you targeting people to invest money in one of your products, and fintech is of course related to money always, maybe as a robo-advisor or a wealth management company, or advice for daily or fixed term money. All these things are related with money also. So you need trust. And when you will step into an existing business, this is right now related to a bank, to a fully licensed bank, you cannot think that at the end you can do the same business without a license. So when you get an advice that start your business and we will see what's going on, and maybe start and at the end maybe you can avoid a license or regulation, I think that's definitely wrong. When you step into the fintech space or fintech sector, when you ask for people's money, when you establish a product where people can invest money and should shift from their account of their house bank to your account maybe. So definitely is one of the most important things. And sometimes we have heard that people started businesses and said, okay, like in e-commerce business or similar businesses, we can start and build up in front end and in back end, and we'll see what's going on, and we will targeting the clients and customers, and at the end we will see what's happened. No, you have to be in mind that at the end, maybe not from the beginning on, but at the end you will need a license from the respective regulator in the market you are targeting your business to the customers.
That's a very good point. I think, and many people actually, as you mentioned, skip over that thought, and especially in the fintech space, it's essential to have that conversation.
Definitely, you need to know what does it cost, or how many money do you need to get a license. Maybe you don't need a full banking license. So we have different kind of licenses, of course. Maybe you don't need the full banking license to perform your business, but of course you have to put some money into your business plan and to show the investor, okay, I have already thought about what does it cost me to get a license or to be a regulated company. Yeah, now we see it as scalable. Scalable capital is maybe one of the well-known robo-advisors here in Germany, and Scalable started as a company without a regulation, but right now they have a regulation, or they have the license as a securities trading bank, which is not a full banking license, but they can perform the businesses fully regulated and compliant with all the requirements which is necessary to perform business for money management to customers.
In terms of your own investments and your own participation in these companies, you've participated in quite a few. What are some of the recent, most exciting ideas companies that you've participated in?
Yeah, maybe one of our latest companies we invested in is Voltoro. Voltoro is one of the world's leading exchange where you can trade Bitcoin into gold or gold into Bitcoin. So we offer clients the fastest and most cost-effective way to buy gold using Bitcoin. So, and some people ask me, okay, why do you offer this service, or what is the idea behind Voltoro? And the idea is pretty simple. People who are interested in buying Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies want to save their money or want to spend their money outside of the existing banking system. And when they want hedge their gains or savings in Bitcoin, they are not willing to change back into fiat currency like euro or dollar, but they are interested to change it in physically metals like gold or silver. And you can do it easily over the Voltoro exchange, and the gold is not a certificate or a derivative. It's physically stored at a company called Pro Aurum in Switzerland. So it's physically there. And if you want to change back, of course, you can do it, and you can change back your gold into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. And also some big recent news. You have closed a joint venture with Block One, which is essentially EOS. For those who don't know what we're talking about, EOS is one of the emerging, one of the largest cryptocurrencies out there. They're looking to establish their own ecosystem for essentially anything crypto related, I would say. It's a very broad concept, as allowing you to create applications, and they're looking to displace Ethereum, essentially.
Yeah, that's maybe the future goal of EOS.io open source software here. And as you said already, we have signed a letter of intent to establish a fund which is targeting this $100 million. And the idea of the fund is to invest in projects or assets or companies which rely on the EOS.io open source software, of course. So that's the main focus of the fund. Block One is, Block One will invest $75 million in this fund, and we as Finlab and one of our venture partner will invest $25 million in this fund. And it's not yet finalized. It's still in a process. We are finalizing the fund documentation and to align or to coordinate with Block One the investment criteria for the fund. But of course, the main goal is that the companies in which we invest or the projects in which we invest have to rely on EOS software.
What makes you convinced that the EOS will displace other systems that currently exist today?
Yeah, what we see today, or with the existing blockchain technologies like Ethereum, is there is a capacity issue. And because you have only 7 transactions within a second, which is pretty low or pretty small proportion compared to existing players like Visa or MasterCard, which has much more transactions via second, like the existing blockchain technology can do. And also we see it's very expensive to transfer data or things right now over the existing blockchain technology like Ethereum. And the idea from EOS IO is that we have another algorithm behind the technology. So maybe you know this is the fight between proof of work and proof of stake, and proof of work is right now the existing technology, and you need the miners which acknowledge the transaction, and the miners get, of course, coins for the acknowledgement, and this is time consuming and it's expensive. And the idea from IOS.io is that we have a better capacity system and not almost no costs, but of course it's much more cheaper than the existing systems we work with right now.
Mm-hmm. And having worked in the cryptocurrency space now for a while, I completely agree. This is a big problem, especially when you're building applications that can scale up and replace the current centralized applications that we see in the market. With the improvements that you mentioned, it's going to be a very, very interesting space to follow. And I think we'll even do a separate episode to maybe give an update on the cryptocurrencies state that we've been seeing recently. We had one with Dr. Professor Philipp Sandner a while back, but in this space a lot happens in a year. How do you look at the topics of ICOs in the cryptocurrency markets? You have made quite a few investments in the crypto space. How do you deal with that topic coming from the traditional financial side and looking at this people crowdfunding money essentially through these means?
Yeah, we are, as a traditional venture capital company, provides money and get shares or equity for the money. Of course, have to look into the market and what's going on there with the ICOs. And we have to deal with it, and we cannot ignore these new funding facility for startup companies, of course. So that is why we have invested in Iconic Lab to have we would in German we would say a foot in the door. So we have a link to the new funding facility over Iconic Lab to learn and how it's going on there, and how do you perform an ICO, and how is the deal flow in this market? So is this a good deal flow, and is this companies which have no other opportunities to get money from investors? So, and of course, we see that in the near future and also in the future, both funding facilities will stay existent. So, of course, there will venture capital companies provide money and get equity in shares. And of course, on the other side, there will companies which will only issuing coins and will funding their business model via ICOs. So like IPO, private equity, venture capital, there's a new funding facilities coming up here, and this is ICO. And all these funding facilities can exist in parallel. So we see that the ICO facilities will not, I would say, delete the existing venture capital ecosystem, but maybe it will change the system a bit. And that's why we have a look on it, and why we have invested in Iconic Lab to have both systems available here, and can look, maybe in the near future we will also invest in a pure ICO, but because right now our investment philosophy is definitely not to invest only in an ICO. We need definitely also shares from the companies, because we, as a stock listed company, have to perform a due diligence, need evaluation, have our balance sheet, have to deal with the auditor at the end of the year. What is the company worth we have invested in? And it's much more easier to do it with a share or asset instead of having a coin or token, which is maybe not listed on the exchange, and you cannot say what is the token worth. So yeah, of course, the company is saying it's worth maybe $10, but for our auditor, it's not possible to assess and evaluate the token. So we will right now still invest only in equity first, and can afterwards also invest in this token or coin sale from this company, but we will not start purely with an investment in the token.
Now, Juan, if I want to go into the fintech space, maybe I would like to work as an investment manager in this space. What is the background, if you were hiring people, if you're looking for talent, what are some of the either skills or backgrounds that you're looking at for people to potentially join Finlab, or even in the companies that you're looking at, what is the background that you're looking at?
Well, the background for Finlab employees and investment management, it's at the beginning economic background, so studied economics, have a master in it, and have an idea what it's fintech. Because when we are now hiring young people, at the end they must understand the financial industries in Germany or in the world, and how it works, a credit card, how will be a settlement, or how is the function of a bank account, a deposit, and it must be related to this. And furthermore, this is something what the most of the young guys have is an interest in the web space or in the blockchain space. So what we are seeing now is that the most of them are very interested in this part, and a lot of them have investments in the crypto space. They know a lot of them. So when you don't have working experience, but they have experience to live with this new world in the blockchain or web space.
So, Stefan, let's say I'm pitching a company to you. What is something that I should absolutely under no circumstances say or do in this meeting? Maybe some lessons learned also from you having so many meetings with fintechs. What is something that when you see or hear in a company that's pitching you, when you say, no, this is not going to work?
No, first of all, you can say everything. You can ask everything, you can do everything when you think it's necessary to present your business model or your company. What is maybe lessons learned for us? Okay, sometimes when a management team is not well prepared what we are doing at Finlab, what we have in our portfolio already, and people don't know exactly in which stage we are investing in. So when a company comes and say, okay, we have already established this and this and this, and we are worth now maybe 50 million euros. So 50 million euros is a post-money valuation. Then, of course, we are out here because we are a seed and to Series A investor. And with valuations over 50 million or more, we cannot deal with because it's definitely too large for a seed investor like Finlab AG. Maybe other companies can do it, and maybe there's a fund which have more funding facilities, but we cannot invest in a company with our first investment at a valuation of 50 million. Maybe at the end, the company is worth 500 million or 1 billion. That's totally fine for us, but we cannot start with 50 million because we are, as a seed investor, it's much too high for us to invest in. But sometimes people come over and present their company and have no idea what we are doing here, and then they okay, we are now have our Series B round, and we say, okay, we don't start with Series B, we start with seed or Series A, and of course we will invest alongside with them in a follow-up rounds in a Series B round as well, but only if we has already invested in Series E or seed funding rounds. So, and that sometimes is it's a little bit disappointing when people don't know what we are doing or don't ask what we are doing and not really prepared what our portfolio contains already, because sometimes people come over and present us a company because they say, okay, we have this business model, and then they change totally in a pitching process, and then they present a business model totally different, and it's totally related to one of our existing portfolio companies, and we will not invest in the same business model as we have already invested in, because it makes no sense to invest in two companies which are doing the same. So And the third point, maybe sometimes management teams bores us. So when we have an exciting management team which present very, very freshly and exciting, and you have your eyes on the pitch deck and follow them, and that's pretty good. And sometimes they have not these presenting skills and then come over and present in a very, very boring manner. And so then when we fall asleep here on the table, maybe then it's the wrong investment. We will definitely not invest in the company. But it just depends on the management team, of course. So, of course, sometimes you have a more extroverted people which present very, very, so in a bullish manner. So it's not always good, but sometimes when you present for our audience, it's good to have their attention. And sometimes they are a little more quiet and present the company to you in a manner which is not so super excited, but maybe the business model is still good. Then you have to figure out, maybe you need another skill from management member to this company, and then we can also invest in this company. But normally we like companies which totally brings our attention on the table, and we very focusing on the pitch deck.
Mm-hmm. And you previously mentioned in our conversation, just tracing back to the beginning, you mentioned you moved from Berlin to Frankfurt.
Yeah.
A lot of our listeners are actually from Germany. How do you see this conversation going between Berlin is obviously the startup city, Frankfurt is the finance city.
Yeah.
How do you see these two kind of competing? And in the fintech space, do you see more fintechs coming from Frankfurt or from Berlin?
To be honest, right now there are still more companies related to fintech also in Berlin located. Definitely, because you said Berlin is in Germany, is comparable to the Silicon Valley, maybe is the German hub for startup companies. However, the ecosystem in Frankfurt is also pretty well so far, and we have invested in 2 companies which are located here in Frankfurt. This is Iconic Lab, Fastbill, and we have another company, it's called Autada, which is located in Darmstadt, which is very close to Frankfurt. So as you see, there are a lot of promising fintech companies located here in Frankfurt. The ecosystem is pretty good because we have the Deutsche Börse Hub here, we have the tech quarter here, and also the existing banks or incumbent companies are here in Frankfurt. So when you have a collaboration or partnership with them, it's much more easier to get in touch with them than to be in Berlin. So we see no competition between Berlin and Frankfurt. What we say always is that Frankfurt sometimes looks like it's the city for the existing large financial institutions, but of course here is still room for fintech startup companies, and we have really good staff here, employees, and but of course we have to deal that Berlin is still the startup hub in Germany, and we travel regular to Berlin because we have also invested in Capilendo, which is located in Berlin. Voltoro is a company from London, but has also a branch in Berlin. And some events are showing up in Berlin regular. So we have no problem to travel also to Berlin. But at the end, when people want to ask money from us, they can come over to Frankfurt and can present here in Frankfurt as well, of course.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, Stefan, Juan, thank you very much for being on the podcast. Do you have anything you would like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, maybe some closing remarks from my side, from Stefan here. We are still very excited to be part of the fintech universe, and we are looking forward to invest in very exciting companies which have the idea to disrupt one of the existing business models, and especially in a cryptocurrency and blockchain universe. And in this connection, we are very happy to work with you guys from Iconic Lab together, not only because you interviewing us here in your podcast series, but also because we know that you are you want to set a high level of the ICO ecosystem with a extensive due diligence performance, and will bring high quality investments for also institutional investors, not only retail investors. Yeah, and that is for us one of the most exciting times right now, to see what's going on in this market. And we are looking forward to work with cryptocurrency, blockchain companies, and feel free to send us pitch decks and we will look on it.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for listening to the Wall Street Lab podcast. For the show notes and much more, visit us at www.thewallstreetlab.com. To see what we're up to before anyone else, subscribe to our newsletter on our website and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast constitutes the opinions of individuals and should not be treated as investment, tax, financial, or legal advice. We take no responsibility for the accuracy of any statements made in this podcast. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only, and it does not contain an offer to sell or buy any sort of financial products, and should not be treated as advertisement for such. Any copying, distribution, or reproduction of this podcast without the prior permission of the creators of the podcast is strictly prohibited.